Hello, my friend. On today's episode, I'm speaking with Ben, and we're actually breaking down a case study of Planet Fitness. And we walk through what we, as gym owners, small boutique gym owners, can learn from a giant big box gym like Planet Fitness. I think we cover a lot of ground here, and there's actually a surprising amount of takeaways from this Planet Fitness exploration. So grab your pen, open that notepad on your phone, and get ready to take lots of notes for what you can learn from Planet Fitness. Hello, fitness business nerds. What's up? Welcome to another episode of the Business for Unicorns podcast. Before we jump in, I have a question for you. Have you ever wanted to peek behind the scenes of Cressy Sports Performance and Mark Fisher Fitness? What if you could spend a day and a half learning with Pete and Mark for only $179? That seems like a good price. And so here's what we're doing. After selling out last year's offering when we did this, we're going to bring back our collaboration with Perform Better. You all know Perform Better, like the industry's leading source of functional training equipment, training information, seminars. And we did this with them last year, and it sold out. It's the Gym Owner Masterclass. And we're doing it again. The Gym Owner Masterclass is exclusively for gym owners looking to create more income, more impact, and more freedom. We're going to teach you the most important lessons that we've learned, that Mark and Pete have learned over 30 years, combined 30 years of running their gyms. And you're going to learn what's working right now, what was working for the top 1% of gym owners in the world right now. It's going to be a full day on Friday the 16th, Friday, May 16th, and a half day on Saturday, May 17th. And it's in Rhode Island. It's in Warwick, Rhode Island. You don't have to remember any of that. It's all down below in the show notes. But if you are free on May 16th and May 17th, and you want to spend a day and a half with Mark Fisher and Pete Dupuis, and you get a peek behind the scenes of how they've been running their very successful gyms for over 30 years combined experience. This is a great opportunity for you. It sold out last time. It's going to sell out again. Click the link down below in the show notes to learn more, and they'd be excited to see you there. So go do it. Mr. Pickard, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for sitting through that very long pitch I had to make.
No, it was great. I presented the masterclass last year, and it was an awesome event.
Yeah, you were there. It was a great room of people. You want to just say a little more about your experience?
Well, it kind of was like the best of both worlds in terms of like going to like a bigger conference, but being in like a smaller, more intimate room. And I mean, let's be real. For $179, I think was what you said. Like that's the killer deal. It's kind of a no-brainer, but it's also nice to be like, we had hangout time and we had lunch together, and we so it felt like you're getting to learn from like best in class stuff, not to toot my own horn, but it's also like a thing where it's really easy and accessible for like questions and getting to know each other and making connections. So I had an absolute blast, and I wish this was a thing when I was more in the operations of my gym.
Yeah, I think it's a great one. And like you said, it's all the content you would get from like a really world-class seminar or conference, but in a more intimate setting, right? It's only a room. I forget how many people were in there, but you get real one-on-one attention. You get to spend quality time with Mark and Pete. So anyway, I'm glad that you enjoyed it last time, and I'm sure it's going to sell out again. I think it's going to be a great event. Yeah. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about today's topic. So today's topic is all about Planet Fitness, which is we don't talk about big box gyms on this podcast very much, but you and Mark have been taking this course, and you recently came across a case study that was all about Planet Fitness and how they do what we do. And so that's why, the intention of this podcast here is, what can we as gym owners learn from a big box gym like Planet Fitness? So let's just start there, Ben. What can we learn from Planet Fitness as you go through this case study? What's standing out?
Honestly, we can learn a lot more than I would have previously thought. It'd be like, oh, it's a different model, it's a different thing, it's 10 or 15 bucks a month, that shit doesn't apply to me. And the reality is Planet Fitness does an absolutely amazing job at what they do, which is different than what we do, but there's principles that can be taken away. Principles are few, methods are many. So there's two kind of major takeaways from me so far with this case study. The first one is that Planet Fitness absolutely prints money. It's incredible. Honestly, I would have guessed that owning a Planet Fitness was some like convoluted like real estate play that didn't actually cash flow very good, and the whole deal is that you get the land and the land. That was my best guess. Not the case at all. Planet
Yeah.
Fitness runs a 27 to 45% margin
Wow.
on 1.2 to 2.8 million dollars per location.
It's pretty sweet.
Outrageous. Different scope, different scale. It's a $2 million investment from what I understand. But there is something to learn about like how tightly they run this business.
Can I start with an even basic conversation? Because I came into this podcast, y'all, actually not having read this. So I'm truly learning along with you as
Please.
Ben describes this case study. Are they a franchise?
Yes. So it's a franchise or a franchisee model with, I think, 2,500-ish locations. Don't quote me on the exact stats.
Gotcha. So you said that up front, you think it's about $2 million to open one of these things, and then go back and repeat the numbers you just mentioned?
Yeah, the bottom third, the median of the bottom third performing Planet Fitnesses do like 1.3 million a year. The upper third do like $2.8 million a year. And they run a 27 to 45% margin on EBITDA, not net profit, but cash flow wise, it's very healthy.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. So what about that surprised you?
Well, one, I didn't think they'd actually really be making that much money. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm aware that in models like these, like, you make money on the people who don't attend very often.
Sure.
That's not lost to me, but I was still like, it's, as of this being done, it was $10 a month. So I'm like, you need a really, really, really high volume to make that work. Like, I didn't think it would be.
Yeah, it's a lot of
people. I didn't think it'd be that lucrative. But also a couple other important things stand out. Like Planet Fitness, the franchisor level, has a mandate that you have to spend $150,000 a year on marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes into this giant ad fund that equates to $100 million a year in marketing for all of Planet Fitnesses.
Yep.
So they've got an exceptional marketing team behind this. Like, there's a reason Planet Fitness had Times Square. That wasn't an accident. The guy we are learning from thinks that will continue to happen for a very long time because they just have so much pull. And then the second kind of piece of this is they do a really good job from a business standpoint of managing their expenses. Like, the staffing model is simple, and we're going to get to the second lesson, which is all about simplicity, but like the staffing model is simple. They put things in place that, like, they're very clear on who they serve and not serve. If you want to lift super heavy and work super hard, Planet Fitness ain't for you. And that's okay. They're not worried about that at all. They're not trying to be everything to everyone. I don't know exactly what their avatar is, but they've got it narrowed down very tightly. And they know, where should I open a gym? Where do I not open a gym? How does that all work? Like, they've got a lot more research and backing behind it rather than like, well, I live in this city and I'm a trainer and I want to own my gym, so I'm going to open a gym in this city, which is exactly what I did and is not necessarily the smartest approach.
Got it. So already you're saying that, they invest heavily in marketing. It's not even an option. You have to spend money, especially if you're selling things that are $10 a month. You need a lot of volume to get up to the, $1-2 multi-million-dollar revenue level. And then the second thing is that they're really clear about who they serve, and all their marketing and positioning is really focused on a specific kind of avatar. So even with just those two things, before we even get into simplicity further, what can our gym owners listening learn from that? How does that information apply to the stuff that we do in our gyms?
Well, we talk about it a lot, but I don't think we can talk about it too much. It's just continuing to always get clearer and clearer on your avatar.
Yeah.
Who I can speak from my experience, because my gym turned 10 years old 2 days ago, which is
wow. Congrats.
Birthday. Thank you. Who I thought we served on day one and who we serve now are very different people.
Yep.
So an avatar is not a one and done thing. It's like a annual review type thing. Are our favorite clients still our favorite clients? And what are the demographics and psychographics that make them our favorite clients?
Yeah.
So it's being really clear on who you serve, but also the flip side of that coin is being okay turning away the people that aren't. That's like the whole point of saying this is who we serve, is that anyone who's not in that circle are not people for you. We don't. In most cities and towns, you don't need 100% of the population to come to your gym to have a viable business.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's really underappreciated, both of those things. The idea that like you're not going to be for everyone. It's okay that people are not a good fit and choose to go somewhere else. That's, part of what's great about the choice we have in these economies that we both live in, right? Is we have options, right? And we can go to different places, and that's useful, right? To give people choice. And the fact that the first thing you mentioned really resonates with me, because our avatar at Mark Fisher Fitness has completely changed over time. Even at Business for Unicorns, since we've been been doing this. We've really gotten more and more clear on who we serve. And I think it's useful to, not just an okay thing, but it's a really good thing that your avatar evolves, right? That the person you served, 10 years ago when you open is a different person because you and your team are different people. The world around us is a different place, right? And so we're all changing and growing. So I think checking in, for me, I think the action step is at least once a year to check in and say, okay, are the people we think we're targeting, are our ideal clients still our ideal clients? As an example, at MFF, we, our clientele is aged. When Mark and I opened that gym almost 15 years ago, right, we were all young in our 20s and 30s, mostly single, ready to mingle, ready to stay up late. No one had any kids, right? And I think MFF still is, has young people in it for sure, but on the whole, the demographic has completely shifted to people who are a little bit older, a little more aches and creaks, right? The pain points are a little bit different. Maybe they have families that they're juggling, or more serious jobs than we did 10 years ago that we're juggling that add extra stress or anxiety or limits on our time, right? All those things make a big difference when you're marketing. So I think those are fantastic lessons. Anything else about that before we move on?
Well, I don't expect the average gym to put $150K a year into marketing.
Yeah.
It's a much different percentage of 2 million than it is of, a few 100,000. But the intention of focusing on marketing. So let's take the dollars out of the equation. If you want to open a Planet Fitness, which will cost you $2 million, and on average in 3 years, you will make your money back, it is non-negotiable that you spend a good chunk of revenue on marketing.
Yeah.
So even if you don't have the revenue to spend on marketing, like what percentage of your time that you're working is spent on marketing?
Yep.
And like Planet Fitness, despite some qualms you may have about they're selling different things, et cetera, which I agree with, it's non-negotiable.
Mm-hmm.
And they're showing a level of success. There's something about like, are you doing consistent email marketing? Are you consistent with your social media posts? Are you running sell by chat? Are you running paid ads when it's appropriate time? Is marketing a thing that falls on the back burner when shit gets busy, or is marketing the non-negotiable thing that has to happen every time?
Yeah.
And I think there's a very valuable lesson in there that marketing can't be an afterthought if you want your business to work. It's great to grow on referrals, but there comes a point where like you're just going to hit a ceiling, and it's probably going to be lower than you want it to be if you're just hoping referrals come in.
Yeah. I think that's really well said, Ben. I think that's it. I think there's a certain number of gyms that can make it a while, even a few years, focusing on organic, marketing, where you're really focusing on leads, getting past members back, local partnerships with other businesses. But at some point, you're going to hit your head on the ceiling of what you can accomplish without spending money. Right. And so at some point, you're going to need to run some paid Google ads, Facebook, Instagram ads, etc. Even local print ads and things in your community. Right. There's going to be a time and a place where many people need that. And I love the fact that it is kind of non-negotiable for them. I'm sure not every Planet Fitness owner loves that they have to spend that money starting in like year one or whatever it is. But I think the point is that it can't just be when you want to, or when it's, you have to really push to get the word out and get that top of the funnel always rocking and rolling. Every day, week, month, year that you go by where you're not getting the maximum number of people on the top of that funnel, you're just kind of leaving money on the table. You're leaving impact on the table. And so, I think that's a great one. What else are you learning?
Well, the next big point was around how simple this model is. So don't get me wrong, there's lots of complexities with like, how do you find $2 million and go through the opening franchise piece? But so we're going to skip all that and talk about like when you're actually operating Planet Fitness, they do things incredibly simply. So I've got a list here, so I'll refer to my notes of kind of the points that we were talking about in this seminar. So a few things like really stand out. First, they don't take credit card. They only do ACH. How much time do you spend in your gym over the course of a year following up with people whose credit cards expired, etc.? It's only ACH. And there's data to show, at least what they were talking about, that on average for a Planet Fitness type model where people will pay and not go often, the average get 9 more months of payments when people are on ACH instead of credit card. Plus, you have way less fees. People will change their credit cards relatively frequently. At least they expire every few years. Most people don't change their checking account very often, especially when they're an adult.
Yep.
It's just like we've eliminated credit card fees, and we've eliminated a person who has to follow up with somebody when their credit card expires. Another really smart thing they do is they charge an annual maintenance fee. So in addition to your 10 or 15 or 30 bucks a month, depending what tier you do, they charge 50 bucks a year as an annual maintenance fee. Most of their profit actually comes from that. Now, I'm not suggesting that our gyms should charge an additional $1,000 a year as a maintenance fee, like another 5 months membership. But there is something around how they market it as a very small amount, but it's always included with this annual membership fee. And I was curious about this, so I did some deep dive on Reddit to see if people were pissed off about it, because I find Reddit to be a pretty good bullshit meter for people.
It's where all the angry people go.
Yeah, but it's also where a lot of like honest people go, that if you put something false on there, you get lit up.
Yeah.
And someone was complaining about a maintenance fee, and there was a whole stream of comments about like, yeah, that's part of the deal that you signed. It's $10 a month. Like, are you really going to complain about spending all in under $200 a year? Like,
yeah.
So that's a thing that they use to keep all their equipment updated, and it adds to the profit line. They've also got incredibly low, like from when it comes to labor, low labor costs. It's like 16 to 17% of revenue goes to labor. They have no sales commissions because all the stuff is, I believe, sold online, and no personal trainers.
Yep.
So what happens when your staff turns into only a few people who probably are like 21 or 22 years old, working part-time, who, nothing against those people, is still a relatively low-skilled job? How hard is it to find a good trainer? How hard is it to find a good salesperson or GM? All of the bottlenecks in staffing, they've just simplified to be like, I think the front desk people just check people in and like maybe give them a towel if they even have towel service. Kind of doubt it with Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
That means no one-on-ones, no performance reviews. Like there's a whole, I'm not saying they don't ever do performance reviews or give people raises, but they've like simplified the people stuff, which is one of the biggest challenges when it comes to running a training gym like ours.
Yep.
And BFU's benchmark is you're doing pretty good if you can keep your people costs in like the 30 to 40% of revenue range. Planet Fitness is freaking 16.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's really not it's not like, we always talk about the training gyms like ours, we're selling relationships and results, right? They're renting equipment.
100%.
Right. It's like such a, but it just goes to show how that difference in approach to fitness creates such wildly different outcomes for profit in this case, among many other things.
Yeah. For sure. And it's also a piece where like, I'm not suggesting we don't have trainers and don't do the things that are for the most part why we started our gyms, but it is something to be said of like, this is how we do it here. They're clear on it. So if you've got staff, like how often do you one-on-ones? How often do you do performance reviews? If somebody, at my gym, we do performance reviews every October, and that's when people can get raises. Then we do a mid-year review in like April. Someone wants a raise. The answer is cool. We'll talk about it in October.
Yeah.
Like, and they've got a pipeline. There's all sorts of things that come to staffing.
Yeah. Well, let's just pause there because I'm sure you have more. But let's just go back to those first three ideas and just map onto our listeners what things are actually. We started to. I just want to pull the thread a little more. Which things are actually applicable? So the first one was ACH payments. Everyone listening can most likely do that. If your platform allows for ACH payments and you get even a fraction of the results that that Planet Fitness gets, you're going to get many more months of people paying on time. You're going to get rid of the credit card fees, and you're going to get rid of the cost of having someone spending money on someone to follow up with all the credit cards that decline. So that's one that can immediately apply to anyone on this call who has a billing platform that allows ACH, and most of them do. The second thing you mentioned, forgive me, my brain is
annual maintenance fees. I'm not sure there's an applicable one in a training gym. I don't think we can really nickel and dime people for that.
Well, I'll say this, that I think the equivalent for us, and they might do this as well, but I think the equivalent for us is making sure that you raise your rates every year. That's right. I think if we recommend 5 to 10% increase every year in your rates. And if you're doing that consistently, I think that kind of serves a similar kind of function. And for those of you who aren't doing it consistently, again, you're just kind of leaving cash on the table. Everything gets more expensive every year. And if you're not charging more every year, you're just committed to having a less and less of a profit margin.
Exactly. Right? And let's say your lease is done in 5 years, you may or may not stay in that space. Like, why not have some of the, even if you don't need the money now, your future self will thank you for, a few grand I don't know what the math will end up being, but like call it a few grand a year for a number of years is like a pretty good down payment on a space.
Yeah, 100%. I think people just, we don't want to dwell on this too much because we talk a lot about raising your rates, and we have a playbook for that that's free on our website. But I think people just often get hung up on this but they forget to realize everything in your business costs more every year. Your landlord probably wants more money. Your employees want more money. All your vendors want more money. Your electricity bill probably went up, right? Like everything costs more. So if you go year to year not raising your rates, you're literally just committed to making less from one year to the next, right? And I want to say, like, that's a very stark way of putting it, but where's the lie, right? Like, that's exactly what it means. And so I think that that's an important one. And this last one with efficiency of staffing. Yeah. I mean, we're definitely in the people business more than Planet Fitness. But I think the point, which is so salient, which is to ask yourself, how simple could it be? How could we get similar results with less people, right? Less moving parts, less complexity, right? And I think that's a great question that every gym owner listening should be asking themselves on a regular basis.
Yeah, I can speak in my experience. I'm torn because I genuinely believe in helping create careers in an industry
Yep.
where I think they're direly needed.
Yes.
And at the same time, we can't just give people jobs because we want them to and expect the ends to meet in our business.
Yeah.
And when you do have people, it's like, it's not about trying to make as little as possible. Like, I bet there's a lot of people who work at Planet Fitness who are like, if I was 19 years old and I had to check people in and I get a free gym membership,
Yeah.
I can bring a friend and it's got showers. Like,
yeah, 100%.
It sounds like a sick job. I worked at McDonald's. That sounds way easier than working at McDonald's. But it is like, what are the systems for managing people? What are you willing to say yes to? What are you willing to say no to?
Yeah.
How does that all work? So it's not just like, oh, what do I do when this comes up? Like, don't get me wrong. If a staff was going to was having a really hard time and was going to leave if they didn't get a raise, like, we'd at least have a conversation. But they know when they join, like, this is how we do it. We do it annually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good for you. Crap, this thing came up. What do I do?
Yeah, I think that those are really great points for how this can make sense for gym owners. I know we're closing in on our time, but any other big takeaways that you want to make sure you get a chance to share?
It's really kind of comes around like who they serve. Like, there's no dumbbells over 50 and there's a lunk alarm, so they don't want serious lifters.
Oh yeah.
When it comes to being an investor, there's like, you buy like an area so that you're not going to have like tons of competition from other Planet Fitness. They don't have any ancillary revenue for the most part. They don't sell supplements. I think you can buy t-shirts online because I was looking this up, but it's not like they have inventory that they have to then keep track of and people might steal and whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's really done in a, like, how do we do like one or two things exceptionally well and not worry about like, oh, I could make an extra $1,000 a month if we added on nutrition. Like, what's that complexity worth? Because Planet Fitness just took all the things gym do and deleted like 8 out of 10 of them and have an incredibly viable business with doing less.
This one, we should have a whole nother podcast where we just talk about this, right? It's just the simplicity part. Because I think that training gym owners, and I've been guilty of this. I'm not perfect. I don't live in a glass house. We are obsessed with adding shit. Right. And I see it all the time, from merch and supplements to nutrition coaching to recovery things. People are putting in like the, recovery sections to their gym to, the list goes on and on. I mean, it's literally endless. And when they really sit down to analyze what the ROI is on those things, it's never good. I mean, of the hundreds of gym owners we worked with at the Unicorn Society, I could think of only one person who was an example for who they sold merch at the front of their gym. I won't name names, but it worked for them. But it's because they basically made a store at the front of their gym where people could buy like food and, all kinds of things. But it's the one person out of hundreds that we've talked to that really, I think, got a good ROI on like a merch store in their gym. But it's so slim. Smoothies, I've seen people trying to add that stuff in their gym. Never works. Not that you can make some money, but it's so little return for such a big amount of complexity. To have to manage all of that, the inventory of it, just to even talk about it takes time, right? And so I think that people forget there's a real opportunity cost. Whenever you add complexity, you really are just committed to having your profit margin shrink.
Yeah. And even the people are making a little bit. It's like, how much time is that taking? Like a smoothie bar, like fruit goes bad. You have to fridge dairy products.
Even the ones that claim to be efficient, they sell whole packages of things like this that are all frozen, like everything's frozen so you don't waste any food. Still, just the setup of having to put a kitchen in your gym is tens of thousands of dollars, right? And so, anyway, I think we're making the point here really clear, which is, while none of you on this call are changing your model to be Planet Fitness tomorrow, and you shouldn't, right? What we do is different and valuable. I think the idea that they really boiled down their business to the simplest version of itself, right? I think that's the lesson that I think is really just so powerful. And even for all of you listening, to take a moment to ask yourself, what is the absolute simplest version of what we do? And how can I at least get closer to it? I might not ever get there or just choose to get there for a million reasons, but how do I just continue to nudge my business that direction? That's worth its weight in gold.
Big time.
Yeah. Any final parting thoughts here as we wrap things up here, Ben?
Honestly, you summed up my thoughts exactly what I was thinking.
I was reading your mind.
The simplest version of your gym is not going to be the same as Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
But I still want to challenge you to be like, what is the simplest version of your gym? Does that extra thing that couple clients would benefit really a thing that you want to do?
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, thanks for this. What a fun episode to break down a case study like this. I'm sure there'll be more from the course y'all are taking, so will be more episodes like this coming. But I think there's a lot we can learn from looking at other business models and, frankly, other industries. We do some podcasts on some other industries where I think we can learn some shit. I'm happy to do one about hospitality. So yeah, it's a good one. Awesome. Well, friends, if you want to get in on our Gym Owner Masterclass, again, happening May 16th and May 17th with our friends at Perform Better, go down to the show notes, click the link, learn more about how to spend a day and a half with Mark and Pete. You won't regret it. Thanks again for a great conversation, Ben. See you on the next one.
Thank you.